Good morning. I am Margie Conway from Creative Hearts Studios, and this is the Connecting Hearts Network program. We thank you for joining us this morning. Um, I've been running quite crazy lately, so I have had a little confusion with guests for this morning. So I do have a guest today, but I'm taping her this afternoon for next week. So I thought I would come on and just give you my thoughts about a few things, which I haven't done quite so much lately. Let's see how this goes. As this week is hit, I have a 22nd anniversary. This is a second marriage. And I will tell you guys that even when you got one of the good guys, marriage is a lot of work. We go through our ups and downs, and we've made it through quite a few big things over the course of 22 years. Um, but we're good, and we're going to make it. And we're going to make it for some reasons that I'm going to tell you about. Um, Number one, we make God a very important part of our marriage and our life. Everybody knows you don't call our house on Sunday or Wednesday because we're going to be at church. And no, I don't think that you have to go to church to be able to have a successful anything. I think church is your wonderful support system that God created for us to be able to learn and grow and fellowship with people of like mind so that we have strength and perseverance to face everything that comes out everywhere else. It is very important to both of us that we are involved with our local church. But we have God at the beginning and at the end and in the middle. And I said end, but I guess I don't mean that because it's not the end yet of our marriage. We make him an important part of it. And in the Bible, in Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verse 12, it says, "And if one prevail against him, two shall withstand him, and a threefold cord is not quickly broken." And what that's talking about is that threefold cord would be adding God to it. It's you, the spouse, and God. So it's very important for you to have that aspect going on of your marriage. Truth and honesty and transparency, which is really hard because I've only been doing that the last year or so, and I'm really working on it all the time. Um, Makes a difference in our relationships together, but it also makes a difference in our relationships with our friends and our relatives and anybody else that you would want to talk to. That's a big part of what we talk about in her journey and in some of the groups that we have at the studio. But getting back to the marriage, my first marriage did not have God in it. And we lasted 16 years simply because I don't give up easy. And, I would fight for it and fight for it and fight for it. But you got to have two people on the same page trying to fight to get to that same page. And we didn't have it. So in the second marriage, we met at church. Two friends invited us there. And we went in 1998. We met at a spring revival. Then by summertime, we were dating, and our first date started at our church. We met for the church service and then went out to lunch. Then we were married at this church after we'd attended it together as a couple. We do all the stuff we do at our church. Most of our friends that we hang out with even originated from there. And like I said, that's because it's supposed to be like-minded people, working together. And when you go out in the world and you're trying to find good friends and good the relatives that you have and that you're going to keep in your life and things, it matters where you meet them. I had somebody asked me how they kept ending up with alcoholics for girlfriends. Well, they kept meeting them all at bars and parties. And that's not saying every single person that goes to a bar or a party is an alcoholic, but it greatly increases your chances of meeting one while you're there. So it does matter where you go and what you do and how you hang out. People are watching you whether you realize it or not. Your children, see how mom and dad do things and then they follow their examples. One reason I do a lot of what I do is because I have a 15-year-old granddaughter. I have a daughter, I have a 22-year-old granddaughter, and I want those ladies to know that some of the ideas that were passed down in the generations of our family are not okay. We are to be able to stand up for ourselves and not accept any type of abuse from other people and to plan how our lives should be able to go. And it's always when you're including God in it is to include God in your planning, but to be able to have a say so in their life and not let it just go down the stream and hope it's a gentle stream as you go. But then, if you don't put some intention into it, you quite often end up in the rapids and you don't have the right boat. So, as you go down your streams in your life, I want you to be in the right boat. And so when we talk about relationships, we talk about, my husband and I, first of all, we are family oriented and we are obviously church oriented, and we are both saved. And I remember not long after we started dating, our church had an old fashioned camp meeting, and there is a song that they sing, I want to stroll over heaven with you. And I was adamant about catching him and saying, are you sure that you're saved and we're going to be in heaven together? Because that's important. You want that in your relationship. You want the anticipation of an eternal life. You want a good life while you're here. Um, we include God in it, and we've had some pretty serious struggles. I came into this marriage with a lot of baggage, whole lot of baggage. And to be honest, he had his own share of baggage in other ways. And we're a blended family. So, I think one reason it took us 3 years before we got married is because I had a teenage daughter that was quick to tell him, you're not my daddy. But then when she wanted something, to go up and say, Ricky, and he was twisted around her little finger. And then I started my family extremely young, but he started his when he was a little bit older. So, where my whole life I've been saying, oh, by the time I'm 36, she's going to be 18, he's going to be 20, I can take a deep breath again. When we got married, my stepson was 11. And so I was like, oh no, 6 more years of teenagers. And some kids' teenage lives are a little rough for a little while. And so we wanted to make sure when we were planning that, blended families, we were trying to do what we could do to do the best for all three of our kids. We included them in our wedding ceremony because we wanted to make sure that they knew that we were a family unit and that even though we didn't all originate in the same place, we were going to do this thing called life together. And so we did what you call a family medallion in our wedding, and that's where we gave each one of them a medallion that matched all the others that says just that we are a family unit and we are going to do this together. My oldest son, at first did not agree that we were a family unit, but as time went on, he's like, oh yeah, it's mom, maybe you and Ricky ought to have been married all along. And, I think that might would have been nice because you would have had two people that wanted to have kids, wanted to be parents, that wanted to do all the good things that, nice Christian families do. And it might have been pretty good to raise a family that way, but neither one of us started our families out that way. But we sure are making sure that the last part of it is there. We, you know, We recently started camping. I'm not an outdoor person, and he very much is. Most of the way that we handle that is he works outside in the yard in the garage, and I stay inside my craft room. Um, I used to like to go walk around parks, and go see waterfalls and stuff, but with all the foot things the last couple of years, I hadn't been able to. But over the last 2 years, we have sat on the sofa together. Between my 2 foot surgeries and his 2 knee surgeries, whoever was able to stand was the one that cooked dinner and drove. So we spent a whole lot of time in recuperation on the sofa together. And so for Christmas, I got him a state park pass and said, neither one of us are walking too great, but even if we just walk down to a scenic view and take a picnic, at least we're getting off this sofa and we're getting out. And so as soon as I bought him the state park pass, he decided we needed a camper. And I was like, okay, but we're not gonna live in this thing. We're just going to take short trips so we can get away, and that will make us get away to go to the parks more often because, you got to make the camper pay for itself. So we figured out how many trips it would take to make the camper pay for itself. But and when we chose a camper, let me tell you, we were picky. We looked at all kinds of stuff, but we found this little cute retro camper, and I can't right now remember who it's by, but it does look like an old fashioned camper. It's just the size for 2 people, so it's our getaway, but it has the stove and the air conditioning and the heat for the winter and a bathroom and a comfortable bed, and and it's really cute because I don't like to do things that are plain. I want one that's going to stand out in a crowd. And everywhere we take our little camper, we stand out in a crowd. And we went camping after we got it. And he was nice. We didn't plan any really long trips. Our first one was at the FDR park because it was close to home and we would be able to get back or get to somebody or whatever if we needed it. And I enjoyed it. But what I enjoyed the most about it was, first of all, our phones was turned off, no signal as far as anybody else was concerned, because we needed that break. Sometimes with what I do, there's so many emotions with other people and things involved that I need to disconnect just for a little while. And Ricky runs around doing everything for everybody, so everybody's always calling him to come do their things. So I made sure everybody knew we don't have a signal when we go camping. So even if we do, it's not for anybody to use unless it's an extreme emergency. So Ricky disconnected and he was able to stand there. I saw him at the campfire that first night and I said, "What are you thinking about?" And he just shook his head. He said, "I never thought I would get you out like this." I said, "Well, to be honest, I didn't either." But, we take our amenities with us. We will catch a restaurant if we go out because I hadn't got the cooking part down. Let's face it, I can cook at home. I don't enjoy it. So why do I think I would enjoy cooking over a campfire where it's harder? But maybe I might learn part of it. But he was so peaceful while we were there that I was like, yep, I can deal with this. I like the quiet. I really like when we camp out near the water because I love watching the water. I don't like the birds that come up to our campsite, but the point of the whole thing is we establish something for us to get away and to do together. And it's something he really enjoyed, but I found out that I could enjoy it too because I gave it a try. And so we went on several little camping trips, and it would be 2 or 3 days here or 2 or 3 days there, and it was great. We really loved it until I woke up at 7 o'clock one morning with cold water all over my feet because we had sprung a leak. So since then, it's been getting repaired, and we've had a son at the house that has had back injuries, so we haven't been able to leave him. So we haven't been camping in a couple of months, and I miss it. I miss our alone time. I miss him being peaceful. I miss him sleeping well at night. I miss just spending time with just him and I connecting to each other. So give it a try. If the other spouse has a habit or a hobby and you don't tend to like it, just try it. And then keep on till you find something you can do together. The things we've had in common we do together is we both love yard sales. We both love going to church and church activities. I had to, when I was growing up, to go to church. They put me in a Christian school. My grandmother did to make sure I got a good education. And part of the requirements to go to that Christian school was I had to attend church there. So the church bus would pick me up and I would go attend church there. My family didn't go unless I was in the play or I was in the lead for something, but I went to church. And so as I was growing up with all the chaos in my house, church was my sanctuary for real. And it's where I I was able to go and I felt loved and I felt safe and I had a lot of fun. And so church was really my sanctuary. And as I became a teenager, I attended the church down the street and got very involved with their Act Teens programs and the different things they had for the youth. And I went down there with a friend of mine. It was close enough. We walked every Wednesday and most Sundays. And no, the family didn't go with me, but I went. So when I got married and I had small kids for a little while in there, it seemed like everything was so chaotic and I didn't get to church for a little while. But when our son was 5 and our daughter was 3, we moved out of Atlanta to Austell for him to take a job. And the first thing I did was go to the local church and get me and my kids involved in it. And so me and the kids got extremely involved in church. I mean, we did everything. Before you know it, I was Bible school director and volunteering at the preschool where my daughter attended. And just, we were there all the time. But my husband didn't attend and he didn't have the beliefs that I had. And sometimes he would argue with me that the problem with our marriage is his only day off was Sunday and we spent the whole day at church. So when we moved to Noonan and that continued and my kids were turning into teenagers, I stopped going for just a little while. And what that showed both of us is that was not our problem. Me going to church and the foundation that I got there and the support system that I got there was pretty much about the only thing keeping our marriage together. And to me, that was one of my biggest regrets because my son had been extremely active with me. But then when I stopped going and I started going back, he refused to go, and his dad stood behind that. And I haven't ever been able to get him back into church, except when he has attended special services with me as an adult because he knew it meant a lot to me to be there. And so as I got out of that marriage, I had a checklist. First marriage, we're young. I was really young. We're kind of stupid. We have an attraction to somebody. We think, oh, we can fix somebody. And let me tell you, ladies, you can't fix anybody. You know, first of all, they probably don't want to be fixed, so they're not going to be. But second of all, even though we can nag them and we can strongly suggest and we can try to love on them to get them to change, they don't do it unless it means something to them, and God has to get involved in it. And, it wasn't happening there. So when I went to get into a second marriage, when I started dating, I was like, no, here's my checklist. No drugs, no alcohol. I prefer it that they didn't smoke, but that wasn't going to be the deal killer. They had to already be a good dad so my kids could see what a good dad was. They had to be saved and already be involved in church because I wasn't fighting that battle anymore. Well, my current husband, when he was younger, he partied and did his thing. when he had his son, he grew up going back and forth to church. And when he had his son, he realized, oh, I need to stop the partying stuff and get him in church. So he did. But his ex-wife did not. And, it wasn't too long down the road from that they got divorced because she said that's not what she signed up for. But I'm told, because he went to the church we go to now, I'm told that he showed up every service with his son and did all the kids' activities with his son and was very involved there. So when we met, we were already on the same page in that direction. And that is very important that you have beliefs. In the Bible, it tells you not to be unequally yoked. And if you've got two oxen that you're putting in a yoke to plow your ground, and one of them is a little bitty puny thing and the other one is a strong thing, you're only going to have the strength of that first one. You're not going to have the strength of two oxen. And that's kind of just, a literal translation of that verse. But that's what it means. It means you have to be on the same page. You got to be going in the same direction. You need to have the faith that's the same because let's face it, ladies, you cannot save anybody. If you could have, I'd have saved a whole lot of people over the time, but they have to want to. They have to be convicted of the Spirit. They have to seek that change and contact God themselves. We can't do it for them. So being unequally yoked is important when you're getting into a marriage. And like I said, when we're young and attracted to somebody and stupid, we don't think about those things. But for the second marriage, I thought about those things and it made a big impression. Well, you guys know by now that I ended up working at that church for a while. So for a very long time, except for our immediate family, if we our work my work was at the church, our volunteering was at the church, our socializing was at the church, pretty much everybody we know and that we have anything to do with, we met through the church. And it's that's who we were always around, and that was a pretty happy little existence in there. Um, I'm not saying you have to do everything you do through the church, but I am saying for your marriage and for your personal life, it is very important that you have a support system behind you. And what better support system could you have than the local church that believes the same ways that you do? That's just how that is. Um, we know that it is important for us. So, as we've gone through this marriage and as we've gone to build healthy relationships, I've had to work through the baggage that I came into it with. I had a lot. And what we grow up with, what we see, really leaves an impression. Everybody knows I had an extremely dysfunctional family, but Ricky had the all American, good, normal family that did what you were supposed to be. And mom and daddy stayed together, and daddy worked, and mom watched the kids and stayed with them. And, they started in Texas and moved to Georgia and did things the way they were supposed to do, and grandparents involved and all these things. And so if I talk about my childhood, Ricky is just kind of in disbelief because to him, that stuff you see on TV, that's not stuff that really happens, but it does. And so, we had to figure out how to do things. And I remember, um, Chad, my stepson, came from a divorced home. My kids were from a divorced home. And sometimes the way that the kids and I would think would be in total opposition of the way Ricky would think. And I would have to tell him, you've got to be patient with the rest of us because we don't understand family quite the way that you grew up and that is ingrained in you. And you don't understand how it was with all of us and how we got to get on the same page there sometimes. And it took quite a while for us to be able to do that. But, our kids had to see what we were doing. Our kids will tell you that we go to church. They will tell you we don't drink. So therefore, even as adults, if they drink, they're not doing it at our family celebrations because they have respect for their mom and their dad. And it's we go to church on Sundays, Sunday morning, Sunday evening, Wednesday evening. This week's Bible school, we're there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And it's our kids know that. So if they tried to plan grandkids' birthday parties or something going on somewhere, they usually tried to plan it around what they knew was our schedule. They know if they really want to please their mom and their dad, that they're going to show up for church with us. When I started going to this church, even as a little girl, I would look at the church pews and they would have families, seemed like happy families, sitting on those pews, moms and dads and kids, and sometimes grandparents or aunts and uncles. And I would think, oh, that's the way, I want to be. And I always had this idea of what would be a good family, and that was part of mine. And so when I started going here at the church, my daughter was a teenager, our son was a teenager. So quite often it was me and Ricky and the daughter and the son. But they came to know that anybody that came to our house and stayed went to church. That was just the rule. So my older son, when he stayed with us, he went to church, even when he had green hair. And the people loved on him and talked about when they got in the pool and their hair turned green. Um, the um, grandkids knew when they came and stayed with us, we went to church. That was a big part of our lives. And the fact that I worked there, quite often they went to work with me and took naps on the sofa in my office. So, like my grandson told me the other day, you've been teaching me about Jesus since I was a little kid. I know about that stuff. And so they are getting the legacy I didn't have. But then the teenagers grew up and went off, and it was me and Ricky. And that was great. That was fun. Then Ricky started doing gun shows on the weekends as work to get, money that we needed for our household. So when I would go to church, most of the time it was me. And then my mom moved in. Well, my mom, of course, was elderly and she was older and she'd never attended church on a regular basis. But I'm like, we go to church. Let's get you some church clothes. And so my mom went to church and that was good. And one time I went and we had a whole row of our family, and two or three of them had to sit on the row in front of us. And I was so pleased. My mom, my aunt, our kids, our grandkids, and my kids know if they really want to please mom and dad, they come to church. So quite often on our birthdays or Mother's Day or Father's Day or Easter or VBS with the kids or Christmas, they come to church with us because they know how much that means to us. And it does. It makes us very happy and pleases us very well when that's able to happen. Our granddaughter has been coming, and when my daughter was a teenager, if she went to walk out of that house and her makeup wasn't just right and her clothes wasn't acceptable, I sent her to turn around and go fix it. My granddaughter, when she started coming to go to church with us, I was so pleased she was here and she was going to church. I was happy to let her wear her ripped jeans and half combed hair and no makeup to go sit by me on the church service. But the more that she went, the more she saw what everybody else was doing. And she started showing up with dresses to wear to church. And we're going on a youth trip next week, so she has moved from short dresses to longer dresses that are more modest. And one day I had on my wide-legged pants and I was late getting ready for church, and she said, we got to go. Why aren't you dressed? And I was like, well, I thought I'd wear these, which I really was joking. And she said, no, you need to wear a dress to church. And so she has seen what we do and she is picking up on it. For her 15th birthday, because we're going on a youth retreat, and at the youth retreat, the kids can't take their phones in the service, so they got to have an actual real paper Bible. For her 15th birthday, we bought her a Bible, a coloring Bible, because she needs something to catch her attention while she's listening. But we bought her a Bible and a nice case for it that will also hold her iPad and all the markers and crayons and highlighters and stuff you need for Bible journaling. And she was happy to get it. And so she is moving along in her walk. But she's not just picking that up. She watches her grandma and her granddad. and her grandma and her granddad keeps her involved in good activities and is trying to keep her involved with a youth trip that she can go on and see other teenagers that are trying to be on the same page that we hope for her. And so we're living the example that we want our family to live. Our family is not going to find us at a bar. They're not going to find us at parties that do that. They're not going to find us at a lot of other activities because it's important to us for them to see a good way of doing things. And, that is part of what makes our marriage work. It's the relationship that we have. And in the relationship, because this was not meant just to be a marriage post. So if you're hanging in and you're still listening to me, this is meant to be a healthy relationship post. The only way that you have healthy relationships is first you got to have a healthy relationship with yourself, and that takes a lot. When we first got married, I didn't have a healthy relationship with myself. I was my okay, I'm gonna do it this way, and everybody's gonna follow me, and I bulldozed them right along, and I did what I thought was right, and was insisting everybody around me did it, but I hadn't dealt with all my stuff. So since I had my major breakdown, we talk about a lot on here, I dealt with all my stuff. So now I've been able to have a healthy relationship with me. I don't have all my regrets pulling at me all the time. I don't have all the hurt still hurting me all the time. I don't have all the walls built up that I really had built up. And so I am a nicer, more open, happier person because I have settled all the stuff that was going on. I let God get involved with it. When I wanted to have a healthy relationship with me, I didn't have a choice. I ended up sitting on the floor not breathing, but I'd always included God in my life. So when I knew I needed a counselor, I was like, I need a Christian counselor. So I went to Christian Families Today, where they are awesome, guys. If you are anywhere local and you need good family counseling, youth counseling, anything, Christian Families Today is awesome. I mean, they were life changing to me, and I still am trying to be involved with what they do, and that's where I got an awful lot of training on different things from. And I went to a good Christian counselor, and she sat down with me, and she, through scripture and through prayer, helped me work out all that baggage. So I remember when she told me that, all right, now you have the tools to handle what you need, anything else that comes up. And I was like, oh no, I kept all this buried and under me for 50 years. I'm covering it all before I go. So I did. I covered everything I could think of, even the new things that came up during the week that I felt like needed covering. And so I evolved that, and I had to have that counselor help me plug into God so that he could help me heal, and I have a healthy relationship with myself. And that causes me to be able to have better relationships with everyone else. I am nicer and I am kinder. I might still be bossy, but I'm better about doing it. And my kids will tell you our relationships are better since I've done that. I'm more loving to them and more accepting on them. My husband will tell you most definitely since I've gone through that counseling and I have a healthy relationship with me, our relationship is much better. I don't try to hide things from him. If I go shopping now, I just flat out say, here I went, here's what I bought, instead of hiding the bags in the closet or behind the door because I was doing all the stress shopping and I didn't want to deal with him fussing at me for it. So now I own it if I go, but I don't do all the stress shopping because I'm not all stressed like I was. So my relationship with me is of the number one importance. You're not going to be able to have one with anybody else if you haven't dealt with everything you need to and gotten yourself to a good stable point and a good stable foundation relationship with God. And I believe that 100%. It is not the church that did it. It is God that does it. It is God that keeps our marriage together. It is God that keeps me on a healthy foundation. It is God that helped me learn how to raise my children. church was my support system. Those people at my church took the place of mom and dad. And and I remember going out to the kitchen talking to the lady over there. She's a good part of why my marriage is still together, because when we were really stressed, she would talk to me about it. The pastor there that was there that I worked for, you already know he is like the dad I never had. um, the pastor that's there now, and the administrator that's there now, and the other guy that does the music stuff, they are like brothers. I consider them like brothers. Used to, when people at our church, because it's a very traditional church, would say brother this or sister that, I'd be like, I'm an only child, I need no brothers and sisters, because I didn't have good examples of what brothers and sisters should be. The only example I had of what they should be is the two kids I raised, because I put every bit of my energy into making sure they had a good relationship and the three of us had a good relationship. So my relationship with me through God is of the number one importance of having a relationship with anybody else. Anybody. And so we've talked a lot about the marriage relationship and the church family relationship. But when we do our Her Journey program, a big part of it is learning how to have healthy relationships with other people. So as some of these ladies come through the program, and they will come and tell you at some point, yes, yeah, they might have had domestic violence or abuse in their lives. So they come to this program. But this program has helped them learn how to deal with all the relationships in their lives. One very dear friend of mine didn't go through domestic violence and abuse, but she had some family issues that had gone on through life, and she has been able to resolve and work with those family issues because she has learned strategies through this program that help her have better relationships with other people. um, Another one who has gone through her journey with me, when we talked about boundaries, she learned how to set boundaries with some of her family members that she needed to set, that has made their relationships better, even though it was kind of hard at the beginning. But over time has made their relationships better. And it's so we need to have, I think everybody needs relationship coaching. And you might go to premarital coaching, but we don't do that for our friends and our parents and our children, and we really ought to. Because it's hard to have relationships with anybody. And the same principles that I talked about for our marriage is also the same principles that you need to have in other relationships. My dearest friends that I have now, that are, lasting friendships. Okay, most of them started through my church. But I remember one of them would tell me that before I worked out all my baggage, one of them would tell me I was her best friend, and I would say, I sure do feel sorry for you because I know I'm no good at it. But now I am more considerate of my friends and more thoughtful towards them. I am not an emotional and empathetic person. Um, I would be the one that would throw the tissue box at you and tell you, stop crying, we got something else to do. And I pretty much have done that quite often. And it's so I know I had to learn how to be a good friend, how to, share confidence, how to open my walls so they could get in. Because, you can have superficial relationships or you can have close relationships. And the close ones are worth the work and the effort to do it. But you have to make sure those people are worth you putting the work and the effort in. And they are also working and putting the effort in. This goes for your family members. I saw so many brothers and sisters fighting and literally fighting when I was growing up. I was glad I was an only child. I didn't want to do that. So when I had my son and my daughter, I'm like, oh no, they're not going to do that. And when they started having the little sibling rivalry that's totally normal, it broke my heart because I thought, oh no, they hate each other like all the other brothers and sisters I'd seen. And I still see over the years that there's a lot of problems with brothers and sisters. And I think my husband has a pretty good relationship with his brothers and sisters, and they talk on the phone, quite often, catching up and try to get together. And there's distance between all of them, but they try to stay connected and look out for each other. And that's what I wanted for my children. So I worked extra hard to teach them how to do that. And, I used the principles from the Bible for relationships to do that. The golden rule, do unto others what you'd have them do to you, and to work out your problems before bedtime, and to be kind to one another, be loving to one another, share, be peaceful, the Beatitudes, be peaceful, be meek, be patient. And so I tried using those with my kids, and then I carried them to church, so they got it again. And my son and my daughter that I raised had a good relationship. As they've gotten older and gotten busier, it's not like they talk every day, but they do spend a lot of time talking with one another, and keeping up with one another. We had family dinner for my birthday this last weekend. All three of our kids were there. The ones that are connected through adoption are out in California, but all three of our kids were there. Our grandkids was there, except for one. And I loved being able to have my family together for my birthday. That just made it perfect to be able to go and have dinner and spend time. And I must put in there, it was also the birthday celebration for my granddaughter, because my birthday's the 9th and hers is the 10th. But I love having my family there. One of the kids said they weren't going to go, and I told them it would personally offend me and hurt my feelings if they didn't go, so they did. They came down, we met together, we had food together, we had lots of hugs and together, and we took a picture. But the one missing grandson who wasn't feeling well, who didn't come, I had to go and cut his head off somewhere else and stick his head between his sisters in the picture, because it was really bothering me, because I was missing one of my close family members in that picture. So it's important that you fellowship. And when you have a relationship with God, we talk about He's supposed to be your greatest friend. Well, you can't have a friendship if you're not talking to your friends and staying up to date on them. So you have to talk to God. You have to spend time with prayer. And prayer is not giving our wish list of what we want for Christmas to Santa Claus. Prayer is communication with our dearest friend, Jesus Christ. So we are to spend time in that relationship, and that goes with our friends and our family members. You can't have a good relationship if you don't have time together. You've got to be in it for the long haul. And when we have our Her Journey program, we start off and we say, here's what a healthy relationship is. Here's what abuse is. And we list specific things. And there's so much more than what we list, but that is abuse, and we don't want abuse for you. So here's what a healthy relationship should look like. Healthy conflict means that both people sit down and talk reasonably and work out their differences. And there's going to be compromise as you work it out, because you had differences in the first place. But each person can voice their opinion without fear or embarrassment, and you work it out together. That is a healthy conflict. It is not somebody exerting power and control and saying, here's what I think, and you're not allowed to have an opinion. That is an unhealthy relationship. To have healthy relationships, you got to have boundaries. And when we talk about Her Journey, we talk about a big backyard. I have a big backyard, and it has a fence around it. And it's not a privacy fence that keeps everybody away. It's one of them old fences like they used to have in the 50s, where neighbors can talk over the fence and you can do things. But I keep all the weeds out of my backyard. So my life has these things out of it, and I'm not going to allow you to bring your trash and your weeds into my backyard. I'm also not going to go into your backyard and start weeding your garden and trying to put your fires out, because you're not going to learn anything if you don't have to take care of your own business. So healthy boundaries are important in any relationship, anywhere, with our children, because those kids, even when they're grown, they will play mama and daddy against each other. You need to have boundaries with those kids so that they learn responsibility and they learn how to lead their own life. And you need to show boundaries to them as they're growing up, so they learn boundaries. So when they get into relationships, they know what healthy conflict is like. They know what boundaries is like. You need to be able to work out. We talk about depression and fear and things in our relationships or in our journey. And you need to have a big part of it is saying you need to have a support system. You need your relationship with God to be good and right. And the only way you can do that is by putting effort into it. You need a healthy relationship with yourself. And the only way you can do that is by working through all the baggage that you have, clean those cobwebs out of your heart and your mind, and renew your mind daily, like the Bible says. Keep a relationship with God going, and be your best advocate. To have healthy relationships with other people, you need to look for people who are on the same page as you. I taught my daughter and her friends when they were growing up, I would say, don't even know what you want your life to be like. And don't even date somebody that's not going to fall in with what you want your life to be like. Because for a couple of reasons. For one, if you date somebody that is doing differently, then you are going to accept that. The more you allow these behaviors in your life, the more you're going to accept them from other people. And so you'll get used to it and you'll settle for something that's not what you want. And so and you don't want to just get in a relationship and carry it down the line so that you are to a point that, well, here's where I ended up. You want to know what you want. So my daughter, when she got ready to get married, she knew she wanted to raise a family in a stable neighborhood with a good dad, and she wanted her kids to go to the same school the whole time because she wasn't able to do that. And so she went and she said she found the neighborhood she wanted to raise her kids in. And then she was praying to God to send the right man along. And he did. And he wasn't what her dad and her brother and even I thought that she would get, because we always like, oh, she's going to marry this big businessman. And my son in law is a good businessman. Um, she had somebody propose to her beforehand that rented a billboard and proposed to her, and then was heartbroken when he found out she was marrying somebody else because she had turned him down, told him she wasn't ready. And she told me the reason was because she knew that she wanted a good, stable family existence. And if she had married the other person, she would be having food, dinner parties, and traveling, and a nanny for her kids. And so she wanted to make sure that she had what her plan for her life was. You have to do that. So when the kids are dating, they need to be intentional in who you date. Be intentional in who you allow to have friends with. Like the person that asked me why they ended up with alcoholic girlfriends. If you want a bunch of drinking buddies, you're going to meet them at the bar. If you want some good people that can have your back and you have their back and your kids get a good example from them, you're probably going to meet them at church, or somewhere similar to that. You need to, if all of your friends um, are on the same page, that unequally yoked includes your friends, because quite often, if you have a friend that has a bunch of bad habits, they're going to teach you their bad habits and you're going to fall into them more than they're going to pick up your good habits. You're supposed to be giving an example to the lost in the world, but you're not supposed to intermingle with them so much that you lose the goodness that's in you. And I have seen that happen with quite a few people. And I'm worried about the children and that are theirs and that have seen them through the years say, "Oh, now look, here's the reputation they're earning at this point. So everything they taught me when I was growing up wasn't true, and in fact it was true. And so you want to keep a consistent testimony so when people look at your life, they say, "Ooh, I want what they got." Not, "Oh, what they got's not working, so they need to come over here and hang out in the mud pit with me." You want to have good solid friendships, and that's having the relationship with yourself, having things in common, having God in it, having good boundaries, knowing how to handle conflict, knowing you are worth the fight. So if you are worth the fight, you need to build your life and the people in your life so that they fit that mold that you want for your life. My life, I want a good, steady, stable house with a husband who loves me and children who respect and love me and grandchildren who can't wait till they see their grandmother and a church family that I feel like I'm home when I go there. Just a side note, this Sunday was my birthday, and the majority of my birthday was spent at church getting ready for VBS, which I totally love, even if I get stressed. This Wednesday is my anniversary, and I will be spending my anniversary at work for the first part of the day and at church doing VBS in the evening. And our anniversary dinner will be nachos with the kids at church. And I'm perfectly okay with that because that is where I want to be most and where I'm glad to have my husband at with me. I just wished all the kids and the grandkids were there too, but they're a little bit old for Bible school and they live a little bit far away to show up to help every night. And so you need to know, these things about yourself before you can have relationships with other people. And then the relationships in your life take work and they take compromise. And so you need to, and I'm going over it again, have a good relationship with God as your foundation for anything else. Have a healthy relationship with yourself before you can move on to have relationships with significant others or friends or family members. So be willing to open up and to work on yourself and to compromise, to show other people, let's work together to have our relationships, to look for those things. And if you want more information about our Her Journey program, you can contact me through the Creative Heart Studios. I don't spend near enough time on here promoting the studio. I promote all our sponsors, but I don't tell you quite often what we do. And our goal is the same as the radio show to provide resources and inspiration and fellowship for women. So at our center, our number one thing is we do our Her Journey program. We've got women who've gone through it more than once because they find it helpful, but they also find the group that we meet with supportive. And these ladies have become supportive with each other outside of our group. And so if you want a place to belong, then you can come there. We have we'll talk all these things through. And I do life coaching. I have one on one meetings with people, and I will coach them in spiritual matters and relationship matters and how to have good relationships with themselves and with God. And we do art therapy. We got a Friday morning art therapy group going on this summer. And instead of just doing free art, it's actually doing intentional art that helps you work through and learn things. And we're working on mindfulness techniques, which is how to avoid procrastination, which is my major one I need right now, and things like that. On the 25th of July, we're having a charcuterie workshop. I've talked to somebody this weekend about doing cooking classes. I know a few of my friends have board meetings there. We've had tea parties. We've had Easter egg hunts. We've got other things that we've built up that we're doing together so that there is a good support system there for you. If you need a good group of friends, come here and plug in with us. We'll be glad to have you. Join us at Westside Baptist Church. If you listen to it this week and want to get your kids there Monday through Thursday, we'll be glad to have them. But if you listen to this down the line, we're still there every Sunday and Wednesday on Smoky Road. So bring your families and come join us there. I've had people calling me and coming off the street and talking, and I love to talk to people about God and about relationships and about how to take care of yourself, because those are things that I've had to learn the hard way, and I would like to make it easier for somebody else to learn it. So I hope you've gotten something out of this today. I've managed to talk for almost an hour, and you might be tired of just listening to me talk, but if you've hung in this long, I really appreciate it. And I look forward to talking to you more about it. Tune in to us next week for some good guests coming in. I'm not going to make you listen to me the whole time. And, we always have really talented guests with great stories, and the ones coming up over the next couple of weeks are also in that. And so, again, I appreciate it. And check us out at Creative Heart Studios. We are on Facebook. We're on Instagram. We have Creative Heart Therapy is our website. And I hope that you catch up with us soon. Bye.